Opinions expressed in this program and not necessarily those of Love 101 FM.
Hello and welcome to the Morning Watch on Love 101 FM. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org. And if you're overseas and on the move, US listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you're in the UK, 0330-332-6541. Or join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also join us on Love 101 FM Facebook and YouTube Live. In the first watch today, examining the bills to grant the right of appeal by prosecution. In the second watch, examining and understanding the present Israel-Palestine conflict. For our social media question, we ask, what are your thoughts on the proposed right of appeal by prosecution bill? Please share your responses on our Facebook page, Love 101 FM, and also on WhatsApp, 876-997-3125, using the hashtag, The Morning Watch. We'll share your responses later on in the program, but before all of that, here's I quote.
This morning's I quote, good judgment comes from experience, and experience, well, that comes from bad judgment.
Interesting. Good morning, Shavani.
Good morning, Rev. How are you?
I am a little on the chilly side. How about you?
I'm good. I'm loving it.
You're in the cold studio there?
I tell you, really nice. Really,
but
really
then
nice.
Again, you shouldn't have a problem, because I hear someone calling you their aroma from the cup of coffee. Shavani? Eh? We have to call you Aroma Shavani now, eh?
Too many names, I can't keep up.
Oh my goodness. The main watch will be back after this break.
We're all in the Sagicor bonus savings. We're all in
Sagicor Bank bonus savings account. The pooled savings account from Sagicor Bank.
We're all in
Bonus savings account pays you monthly interest, plus a bonus each month to top up your savings.
in the Sagicor bonus savings.
The bigger the pool of savings, the bigger the bonus. Together, everyone earns more with
Sagicor bonus savings. We're all in.
We're all in with Sagicor Bank bonus savings account. That are the sound of some delicious grace beans I cook up. And grace beans well versatile and nutritious enough. You can have some by itself, with rice, fried dumplings or vegetables, or add it to your favorite meat kind to really bring out the flavor. And best believe, every bite you take go nice. Try some grace beans today, including new additions like grace dried beans, black beans, red kidney beans, green lentils, and chickpeas. Grace beans, always been good.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Now, under the present law, the prosecution has no right of appeal against a verdict of acquittal in criminal proceedings. They also have no right of appeal against the imposition of an inappropriately lenient sentence. But now, two bills to allow for the right of appeal by the prosecution have been tabled. What are the issues and implications arising from this recent development? Well, to answer these and other related questions we have online, Mr. I hope I pronounced the first name correctly, Janek Ford, Crown Counsel from the Office of the DPP, and Mrs. Valerie Nita Roberts, QC, Defense Attorney at Law. Good morning to you both.
Morning.
Good morning.
Right. Thanks for joining us this morning. Let me begin with you, Mr. Forbes. In a nutshell, what do the bills state in regards to the proposed right of appeal by the prosecution?
Thank you. Well, in a nutshell, there are two bills. One to amend the Judicature Appellate Jurisdictions Act. The second is an amendment to the Judicature Parish Court Act. And what it does, it grants the prosecution or prosecutors generally an avenue to appeal a decision of a judge on any point of law, or law and facts, or on any ground that there has been what is termed an administration of justice offense, which is an offense such as perverting the course of justice. And it also grants prosecutors the avenue of appeal where it is that a sentence is imposed, which is too lenient or which does not take into consideration all that should be. That, in a nutshell, I believe, is or are the changes that these bills propose to effect.
Why two bills, Mr. Forbes?
It is important for two bills because, as we can appreciate, there are proceedings which operate in the Supreme Court and there are proceedings which operate in the parish court. So there are two separate jurisdictions. You have your less serious offenses which are prosecuted in the parish court, and that accounts for the amendment to the Judicature Parish Court Act. And you have your more serious offenses, your rapes, your murders, which are prosecuted in Supreme Court. And the amendment to the Judicature Appellate Jurisdiction Act seeks to guide those proceedings.
And would it be fair to say that the prosecution, the DPP, is in favor of these two bills?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I will just say that prosecutors generally, because one feature of this act is that it incorporates other prosecutorial services or other prosecutorial entities, such as the Major Organized Crime and Anti-Corruption Agency, which has provenance over certain criminal prosecutions, as well as the Integrity Commission, which has been strengthened in recent years to allow for prosecution of those offenses. So we are certainly in agreement with these proposed amendments. It brings the laws in Jamaica in line with other territories, and certainly it only in effect strengthens the administration of justice for all.
Great, great. Mrs. Nita Robertson, still with us? Mrs. Nita Robertson?
Yes, I'm here with you. Are you hearing me?
Great, right. I'm hearing you now. Now,
Okay.
as a defense lawyer, what are your views on these bills, at least in their current state?
First of all, I will start as a citizen of this country because these amendments are a challenge people's constitutional rights. And that is why the defense bar, the private bar, has been saying that these are issues that the public needs to be informed of, educated of, so that they can have an input, because all of these changes are going to affect the rights of each and every one of us. The amendments also allows a person who brings a private prosecution to be able to change their views of sentence and conviction by going to the Court of Appeal. So it's not just prosecutors as we know them. It's a wide range of individuals. And that in itself is dangerous because, very simple, it's human. I am prosecuting somebody that I think has done me a wrong. I have a view. I am right and the person is wrong. And the person defending has a view that they are right and the other side is wrong. So what you're really doing is really opening a floodgate of challenges to acquittals when the Constitution and the rules of law say, for example, you are presumed innocent, and when you are acquitted, you cannot be tried again. It gives a protection to the citizen under the principle of autrevoir acquit, which is a protection from unwarranted harassment by multiple prosecutions.
Mm-hmm.
It also, which is alarming to me, gives the prosecution added power. Remember that the prosecution has all the money, all the facilities, all the arms of investigation and prosecution at their beck and call, and they have the funds to prosecute. The ordinary man in the street does not have that wealth and that access to funds to protect themselves. In addition, the prosecution has, the DPP has the unfettered power of beginning or ending prosecutions. They already have that power, and it is unfettered. So here it is now. You come to move the power of the judge and the power of the jury to say not guilty, and to take a matter to the Court of Appeal to bring it back if the Court of Appeal agrees to effect a new trial. Let us take away the unfettered powers of the DPP and then we can talk.
Mr. Forbes, as a mouthful
Yes.
from Mrs. Nita Robertson, your response?
It is. But I wish to start my response.
Mr. Forbes, what is?
All that Queen's Counsel has said. I know there are certain concerns in the public fora in respect of these bills, but I believe when we look on them dispassionately, we will identify a couple features. And the first is that the prosecutors in general operate within an ethical construct. So a prosecutor can only and ought only to act or to make a decision based on law. We are guided by that particular ethical construct. And when you look at our limited right to appeal in areas such as bail, there has been no floodgates, as Queen's Counsel has put it. There have been no plethora of cases before the court in areas dealing with bail, where the prosecutor now currently enjoys a right of appeal. But there's also an important point, which I believe must be said, that these bills propose that, one, in most instances, the prosecutor will require the leave of the court. And this is important because it is important that the Court of Appeal has an opportunity to verify the bona fide, verify whether the appeals or the applications for appeal have a merit, have a reasonable ground to be argued. So there is that fetter in this new right given. There's also, when you look throughout the region and further afield, there has been no similar floodgate of appeals based on prosecutors' rights to appeal. So if you look on, for example, there are statistics out of UK and other territories where it suggests that the amount of appeals are not more than 5% of the matters which are terminated in acquittal. And that is important because we do not expect that it is every single case which will end up on appeal, because a prosecutor has to consider, one, is there evidence? Is the law supporting this
You know
appeal,
what, Mr.
and more
Forbes? Could you just hold,
importantly,
Mr. Forbes? Yeah, could you just
yes,
hold
sir.
that thought, please? We're going to take a break and be right back.
Sure.
This is Love 101, the family station, 7:15. So
Level up with the PlayGo app and get a front row seat to watch your favorite movies and more from Jamaica's fastest network. For only $675, get a 7-day Prime Brata bundle with 51 gigabytes of data. That's 2 gigabytes of any use data and 49 gigabytes of exclusive data to enjoy more hours of your favorite movies and sports, all at your fingertips. There's also unlimited access to social media and YouTube, plus local calls. Activate your 7-day Prime Brata bundle today in the My Digicel app. Digicel, better together.
Wait, what you doing here? I come to sort out a license. That little thing me I try start. But them no want help me.
That's not right. You talk to the manager.
Yes, say him too busy. But as a money man walk in, them run can help him.
Everybody have the right to fair and just treatment. That's how the Constitution go. Come, we're going down there. And this time I have to help you and treat you with respect.
Everybody have rights. Brought to you by the National Family Planning Board and the Office of the Public Defender.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint, and we are examining the proposed bills granting the right of appeal by the prosecution. We have online Mr. Janek Forbes from the Office of the Director of Public Prosecution and Mrs. Valerie Nita Roberts, QC Attorney at Law. Mr. Forbes, before the break, you are responding to what I think were 4 main points raised by Mrs. Nita Robertson. That one is a challenge to constitutional rights. 2, someone who brings up private prosecution can take it to the Court of Appeal. 3, it may open the floodgates of challenges to acquittals. And 4, it gives the prosecution added power when they perhaps already have unfettered power. Continue, please, Mr. Forbes.
Yes. So I had touched on the arguments about the floodgates, and I also touched on the concerns with the Constitution. But I believe it's important to appreciate that the system of justice or the administration of justice requires that the pendulum of justice swings in both directions. So yes, there is a constitutional guarantee for accused persons to be treated absolutely fair. And I believe this in these bills in no way affects that guarantee. But what these bills do is that it affords justice to swing in the direction of victims and relatives of victims as well, because it's a progressive approach. It is one which considers the victims, because if it is that you have decisions or accused persons who are acquitted in circumstances where a judge has made an error or there has been some sort of perversion of the course of justice, then I believe it is only fair that the victims have an opportunity to seek and to get justice, and that is one aim of these 2 bills, right? And then there's a third concern, and that is in respect of the facilities which a prosecutor or the prosecution services has. And it's important to know that one consequential amendment to these 2 bills is an amendment of the Legal Aid Act, because it is included in these bills that legal aid will be provided to persons who do not have those facilities to prosecute or to represent themselves or to secure representation on appeal. So I think in general, when we look on the aims of the bills being proposed, I believe it can only strengthen the administration of justice more. It does not fetter an accused man's right to a fair hearing, and it makes judges more accountable in circumstances where there's an obvious error by a judge, or there is an obvious attempt to pervert the course of justice in securing an acquittal.
Mrs. Nita Robertson, it sounds fair, doesn't it? The interest of justice, pendulum swinging both ends. Mrs. Nita Robertson?
Not hearing you, QC, But your microphone is muted. Not sure what's happening.
Mrs. Nita Robertson, we're not hearing you.
No, and she's unmuted. Not sure what's happening.
Okay. All right, perhaps we have to work on that. Mr. Forbes, still with
Yes,
us?
sir. Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
In the interim, how would you respond to the argument that if the bills become law, they would ostensibly amount to a long and drawn out set of trials and double jeopardy for those
Are you hearing?
And
Yes, QC, we're hearing you.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. Let me just say this. First of all, I'm not at all confident.
Mrs. Nita Robertson,
Yes.
I'm not hearing you as loudly as I'd want to.
Okay, I'm not at all hearing it better.
Yes, that's better. Please go ahead.
Okay, I'm not at all confident of prosecutorial restraint in Jamaica. we keep looking at other jurisdictions, and we keep looking at the legislation that they have, and we keep trying to adopt them here without considering what really is the state of affairs in Jamaica. I think we need to stop. We need to stop doing that. Let us also remember, at the end of every trial, the judge asks both sides, is there anything you wish to say? That is the opportunity for defense counsel or crown counsel to say to the judge, I believe that you need to redirect on circumstantial evidence, for example, bearing in mind such and such a case. Okay? Or we feel that you have your directions on the facts are not accurate, and we ask that you look back at it. You say it in a polite way. It is received by the judge. At that stage, corrections can be made, and they usually are made if the issue raised is correct. And the judge knows the law. The judge is presumed to know the law. So when that affords both sides an opportunity to correct any errors. When you sit there and say nothing as a prosecutor, and the matter goes to the Court of Appeal, it costs the defendant money. And don't tell me about legal aid, because legal aid in Jamaica is nowhere where it should be because of funds. The more senior attorneys don't take it because the monies that are paid are really tokenism. When we can do something about that the ordinary man in court can have the best representation that money can buy, then we can speak about legal aid. Yes, and fair trial is guaranteed under the Constitution and by every court. It is said that prosecutors are ministers of justice, so they don't win or lose a case. I am afraid that in Jamaica, we are losing sight of that principle in court. And we need to do something about that. So the prosecutorial system is such that you have the investigator, the investigative arm, and then you have the prosecutorial arm. What is happening with these amendments is that the separation of powers, the separation of the prosecutorial arm from the judicial arm is being eroded by giving the prosecutors the power to go to the Court of Appeal and to say, we don't agree with this. Look at sentencing, for example. We went through a long period of putting together guidelines for sentencing. And we are still having criticisms about sentencing. The prosecution and the entire bar and the justice system can go and look back at the guidelines so we can have a more even approach to sentencing, because the prosecution doesn't think at this stage it is even. I, for one, believe that sentencing is a matter for a judge who has been trained to apply the principles of sentencing, and that they are objective. They are neither prosecution or defense, and so they are the best persons to look at the case, to view the mitigation, and to pass the appropriate sentence. And one thing I agree with counsel with is perversion. But as I've already said exhaustively, the Janice Allen case, in which it was alleged that there was perversion, went all the way to the Privy Council, and they confirmed the view that, and the law, that any acquittal obtained by perversion, you can re-indict. What happened in Janice Allen's case was that the investigative arm failed to take into custody and secure a document that was needed for the case. They didn't do that, and then there was a fire and the document, years after, not a month or 2 years, years after, the document got destroyed. Then, because the case took so long to try, an important witness had gone abroad and indicated they were not coming back. They could have used video cam for that. They did not. So Janice Allen's case did not allow them to deal with what they thought was perversion. And may I say, the Privy Council said that the accused man had nothing to do with what transpired. And the last thing I want to say is this. When persons are prosecuted and they are found not guilty, there is no compensation for investigation that is perverse or is biased or is not reasonable. No compensation, and people's entire lives are put on hold. They lose jobs, they lose opportunities, and there's great difficulty in putting themselves back in the position they were.
Okay.
Before
Hearing
the
you
case.
loud and clear, Mrs. Nita Robertson. Mr. Frost, you have the last word on the matter.
Well, real quickly, there is a view that the right of appeal erodes the judicial authority, and I believe that there's some basis for that position, because what it does is it provides an avenue where the judiciary is held accountable for its decisions. The Chief Justice is on record as supporting these bills, because anything which provides a layer of I've lost my train of thought, but anything which provides an added layer of accountability for judges can only strengthen justice, and that is very important. There's also the concern of if judges are making errors, but I will say that we have had the sentencing guidelines since or about 2017, 2018, but yet there are still decisions which up to very recently have shown that judicial officers have fallen in error. And that is understandable, that is expected, that is not a criticism of the judiciary. It is important, however, that the system has in place procedures to course correct, procedures to allow justice to be served where there's an obvious error, or where there's an obvious error as to law. And that is very important. There is also the concern as to whether it infringes on UTRAP, or what we call double jeopardy. And a consequential amendment to this act will allow for the amendment of the Criminal Justice Administration Act. So the legislation, if these bills are passed, they will have the requisite constitutionality because they would have amended the Criminal Justice Administration Act.
Okay.
And finally, I believe it's important to note that in Jamaica, there have been no similar floodgates where you have bail applications or rights appeal in respect of bail. It is just not so. A prosecutor cannot,
People can't afford it.
without due regard to the law,
People can't
embark
afford
upon
it.
on appeals in circumstances where they are not supported by the legislation or the cases.
We have to leave it here, Mr. Forbes and Mrs. Nita Robertson, stimulating discussion and debate. I want to thank you both for joining us this morning. Have a productive day.
Same to you. And thank you for having us.
Thank you as well.
Want to return in just a moment.
JN Bank Live Online Banking is your quick and easy banking that's safe and secure. Sign up today. Visit jnbank.com. JN Bank will help you find a way. The time is
7:31 on the Sound of Love. Soon come.
Every time you share a Coke, you can express what is hard for you to say. Open one and start now. Collect and share our bottles to ask for a kiss, to promote change, to show others how much respect you have for them, to spread smiles, to take a sip of Coca-Cola, to sigh, and to fill the world with fun. Express yourself letter by letter. Look out for our bottles with the alphabet and share your wishes, feelings, and your joy with Coca-Cola. Open for better.
I'm looking for a new pizza joint with that perfect crust. My car needs a bit of a tune-up, and my pregnant wife needs something from the pharmacy. So I turned to the printed yellow directory, and in an instant, the pizzas are ordered, the oil change is booked, and the thing that I'm not allowed to say out loud has been purchased for my wife. Problem solved. When you need something quick, do yourself a favor. Flip through the printed yellow directory. Stop searching, start finding. Yellow, we know local.
Bills to pay and funds to transfer? No problem. I do it all on my time with JN Bank Live Online Banking. It's my simple and secure as that online banking.
Phone credit need a top up? No problem. I do it with JN Bank Live Online Banking.
It's quick and easy with just a few clicks. JN Bank Live Online Banking that goes where you go. Sign up today. Visit jnbank.com. JN Bank will help you find a way.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Let's now have a look at the newspapers to see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing. In the Gleaner, hope sinks for cruise revival. Norwegian line scraps Mobay home port plan. And then female wards off limits to unsupervised male care staff. And we see here also that female wards of, it's the same thing. Okay. The Observer, vaccine plea. PM calls out Jamaicans wishing to benefit from herd immunity, but who will avoid the jab? And then damning UWI report tabled in Parliament. And then junction taxi operators strike, demand upgraded park. Coming up next, we'll read some of the feedback from our social media question. What are your thoughts on the proposed right of appeal by prosecution bills? Please leave a comment on our Facebook page, Love 101 FM Jamaica, or WhatsApp 876-997-3125. We'll be right back.
This is Hurricane Alert, a bulletin of hurricane preparedness tips presented by Love 101 FM. Stocking up for the hurricane. Fill your car with gasoline. Move your car to high ground away from trees, preferably in a garage or other shelter. Stock up on water. Fill clean containers with drinking water. You should have a 2 weeks supply on hand, which is about 14 gallons per person. Fill bathtub with water for sanitary purposes if you plan to stay in your home. Stock up on food. Make sure you have enough non-perishable food to last for 2 weeks. Stock up on prescriptions, at least a 10-day to 2-week supply, and first aid supplies. Stock up on extra batteries for radios, flashlights, and lanterns. Stock up on cash. It's good to have extra cash on hand just in case. You've just heard Hurricane Alert, a bulletin of hurricane preparedness tips brought to you by Love 101 FM. Keep listening to Love 101 FM for more helpful tips when next we present Hurricane Alert.
I am a man, yes. Strong man, integrity man, I am a man.
Man, oh man, are you ready to be the better man? Well, for the rest of June inside the mailbox, we invite you to listen to Be the Better Man series. This Wednesday, June 2nd at 5:30 p.m., we will take a look at men and mentorship. Why is mentorship important? Do you believe mentorship is like a cushion for missing fathers in the home? What more can be done for you as a man to become #better man? That's the mailbox, the program designed for men, with guests who are men, hosted by men. The mailbox with Pastor Courtney Morrison and yours truly, Kevin Bailey. Wednesdays at 5:30 p.m. right here on Love 101, the family station.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint. Let's join Siobhan for a look at how our Facebook and WhatsApp friends answered today's question. What are your thoughts on the proposed right of appeal by prosecution bills? Siobhan?
All right, this comment says, I listened to that lady speaking on the justice system, and I wish I could shake her hands because many are in lockup not guilty of the charge, and no one is going to compensate them for their life that it's messed up. And their children that are not supported. God help us in this country. This one says, is the curfew, can you ask the Lord if the curfew are going to affect the person's police record? If they lock up, what happens? All right, well, they're asking questions. Well,
yeah.
Keep the conversation going, folks.
Yes, we're happy for the feedback. Thank you very much.
Yes.
All right, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is one of the world's longest hostilities, with more than 50 years of occupation by Israel of the West Bank and the Gaza Strip. The support for either side is split. But what do we understand about the present conflict? Well, to address the issue, we have joining us this morning the Reverend Dr. Garnet Roper, social commentator. Good morning, Dr. Roper.
Hello?
Yes, good morning, Dr. Roper.
Morning, yeah.
Yes, how are you this morning?
I'm well, thanks.
Great. Thanks for joining us. It's just both of us discussing this matter this morning. Now, as we seek to better understand the Israel-Palestine conflict, something tells me that it's best for us to put it in its proper historical and perhaps biblical context. Can you help us in doing so, please?
Well, there is a kind of biblical concept that is popularized by the Dallas schools of theology that says Israel came to the land because God gave them and they have occupied it. And they make a continuity between the story of Israel in the Bible and the European-American experiment, which has created Israel, which is now in the Middle East. I don't accept that history as being the perspective from which to understand what we now have. That history has a kind of concept we call in Latin terra nullius, empty land, which suggests that Israel in the Bible occupied land that was empty, and they have a prior claim on this land at the exclusion of all else. And that is the same concept with which the Euro-American experiment of slavery and colonization of Africa, of the Caribbean, of South America took place.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm of the view that the indigenous people have a prior claim on the land. And at any rate, even if one doesn't go all the way back to, Canaan and ancient Israel, in 1948, when Israel, as we now know it, came into existence, there were people living in the land of Palestine, and they have a legitimate claim to their citizenship and their own land.
Mm-hmm.
So what you have then begins in 1948 of Britain and America facilitating the modern state of Israel. They claim a certain kind of biblicism, that is to say the Bible tells them that they should do this, and that in doing so they are engineering the end of history. What in fact they have done is set up a rude boy, a spoiled child called Israel. And Israel, as you saw a couple of weeks ago when they started bombing Gaza, has been annexing Palestinian land for Israeli settlers. Just take people out of them house and enter them, them cities and towns and displace them and replace them with their own people. Because they have nuclear weapons, because they have a Western narrative, and because they have enormous financial resource, they can make what they want happen. But it doesn't mean it is right.
Yeah. Is there a distinction, Dr. Roper, to be made between modern Israel and the Israel that is mentioned in the Bible?
I think there is a distinction. There is a distinction. The people in Israel now are, former European Jews, right? So they would represent a strain of Jewish ethnography.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but they're not particularly religious, These are not faith communities.
Oh?
No, they are secular people.
Mm-hmm.
Who would ever accuse Benjamin Netanyahu of a smidgen of religion? These are people possessed of a ruthlessness of the worst militaristic states anywhere in the world. They bomb a 5-floor residential dwelling on the basis that they said there is a Hamas tunnel under it, right?
Yeah.
And Hamas has an office in it. So yeah, there is that, and part of the problem, I was thinking about it, Dr. Toussaint, and there are 3 issues that you discuss to your peril. One of them is homosexuality, the other is communism, and the third is Israel. And the reason is people already make up their mind and have conclusions which they require you to draw.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't draw those conclusions, then it means you're among the worst, you're the worst of liberal or misguided people. These are a priori issues. People come to their conclusion before the fact and often without the facts.
Yes, we can add abortion to that list too.
Abortion is a little less problematic.
Yeah, but I'm still at that point though. Before we go to break, how does one really make the distinction? Because persons reading the Bible, they say Israel all over the Old Testament pages, and now we're talking about Israel. To the listener out there, how would you make the distinction though between the two?
History is a matter of time, eh? And we're discussing with vast swath of time. Paul engages the argument. By the time we get to it, we are 2,000 years after Paul. But from Paul's time, he was already troubled with the distinction that you're asking me about.
Mm-hmm.
And he was making a comment about all Israel according to the flesh being saved. And he talks about he himself being troubled, and part of the problem for us is that sometimes this thing is lost in the translation. So Paul made a distinction between Israel and Ta'etna, which we translate as the Gentiles, which is the influence of the American kind of Dallas school. It really is the nations. So there is a presumption that God has a favorite named Israel.
Right.
And that is his people, and everybody else is our children of a lesser God.
Right,
you know?
right. God's chosen people.
Right. And the New Testament sets about to reject that idea.
My apologies, Dr. Roper. We're going to take a break and be right back.
We're tuned to Love 101, the family station, approaching 14 minutes to 8 o'clock.
Jamaica and its workforce are advancing quickly. Life-changing opportunities are arising. You need training and support. We are the Renewed Heart NSTA Trust, committed to providing new and emerging skills training and opportunities. Come to Heart. We'll help you claim your place in the workforce of the future.
With their versatility and timeless appeal, tiles can give color, texture, and a fabulous finishing touch to any space. And at Active Home Center, we have the best selection of tiles at affordable prices. Shop a wide selection of floor and wall tiles to add style and personality to your bathroom, kitchen, living room, and even your outdoors. Come in and let our experts show you how to make your designs come alive with the right tiles. Visit us at 84 Constant Spring Road. Active Home Center. More savings, more choices.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. Thanks for staying with us. I'm your host, Dylan Toussaint, and we are examining and seeking to understand the present Israel-Palestine conflict. And we have online Reverend Dr. Garnet Roper, theologian and social commentator. Dr. Roper, before the break, you were expounding on the distinction between modern Israel and the Israel mentioned in the Bible.
Right. So Paul in Romans makes the distinction himself, and he asks, are all Israel according to the flesh? And he goes into a very interesting discussion in chapter 4, where he talks about Abraham as the father of Israel, and he says Abraham is a father of faith. Right? He received the promise before he was circumcised. So that it is really to the extent that people are the people of faith that they have a right to the claim. Circumcision, he says, is of the heart. Those are the people of God. So he makes that distinction. I teach Hebrew, as you know.
Yes.
And I've had more than, my fair share of Hebrew scholarship. I can read Hebrew, but I can't read modern Hebrew, right?
Yeah.
The fact that I am speaking Hebrew or reading Hebrew doesn't mean I can communicate with a Zionist, as somebody who lives in Jerusalem. No, right? In fact, the same 1948 when Israel became what we now know it, it is the time they discovered what is called the Qumran Scrolls, right?
Yes.
And that is the time they discovered a text which is older than the text that they had. Prior to that, they had a text called the Masoretic text, which was 1000 AD. But I'm going into that all kind of fandangle. So simply say that they have a historical connection, but there is no real continuity except a sentimental claim and except the political claim that Israel, that Britain and America are making for them. But there is nothing else that makes them continuous. Yes, the Jews are the people with the longest memory outside of the Chinese. And they have preserved both family and tradition in a way that most other ethnic groups have not. And therefore, there is that continuity, but not a continuity in claim. At any rate, once we're discussing it that way, you imagine what would happen if the Tainos get up and start telling you can't live in your house because it's theirs. I mean, Portmore was a Taino village, remember? What of Portmore we know, right? They used to take them canoe and so on. But them don't come back and come and bomb us and tell us we should leave our houses. You know.
You mentioned earlier about Zionists, and there's been a lot of talk about Zionism. Can you enlighten us on what that is and what are your views on Zionism, especially in relation to the current Israel-Palestine conflict?
Okay, so the current Israel are Zionists. There are elements of Zionist theology in the Bible, but there is a discontinuity between the Zionism to the extent that it is there, that you find in the Psalms and some other places in the Bible. So the mountain or the mound or the hill on which Jerusalem is set goes all the way to the ancient Jebusites, right? Where they built a city on top of the hill. And it was a fortress that was impregnable and invincible until David defeated it by using the sewage or water system to come and invade the city from inside and overthrew it. So Zion has this natural advantage where chariotry warfare was concerned, and for that reason was secure until the Babylonians took it and defeated its idea of invincibility. So after the Babylonian exile, there emerged a kind of notion of Zion as the city of God, right?
Yes.
And they have built an entire theology around the sanctity of the site. And on that basis, so that's a nucleus of the theology or of the politics or of the ideology of modern Israel, that Jerusalem is a sacred city, is a citadel, right?
Yes.
And they're using that now to say that the Palestinians who also lived in Jerusalem, right? Because we are having this conversation and you and I are Christians. The Christians are the Palestinians, you know, with Bethlehem and all of that.
The Christians are the Palestinians. Did I hear you right?
Yes, the Palestinians are the Christians. Right? So if you go to Israel and you're looking, where are the Muslims? Where are the Judaists? And where are the Christians? It is the Palestinians that are the Christians, where Bethlehem is, right? And where the shrine of the nativity and all of that. That is in Palestine.
I see.
So I have a very good friend that perhaps the next time you have a conversation like this, I will give you his number. You call him, let him tell you the story. His name is Mitri Rahem, right? He's president of the University of Bethlehem. These are very serious Christian people, and they are not Christians in a recent sense. That's where they have been historically. But you can't move in Palestine without showing. In fact, I was in Atlanta not so long ago before the COVID year at a convention that he was present, and he showed a film of a soldier just shooting a Palestinian like somebody shoots a bird. You know. You know, it is when I spoke to him in this most recent flare-up, he said Israel is continuing its colonization project. It's building of the new apartheid.
There are persons who argue, Dr. Roper, that in this recent conflict, it was Hamas who initiated the attacks.
No, you're always getting this kind of Western media perspective, right? Israel is their darling, so they present points. If you are in Jerusalem, you think Hamas is the aggressor. If you are in Gaza, you have a different picture. Right? So Israel, if Iran were to do something to Israel today, we would claim that Iran was the aggressor. We'd forget that Israel killed its chief nuclear physicist the other day.
Yeah.
We just forget it, because when they do something, it is part of what they should do. It's part of their right as world police.
Yes. And it seems as if Israel has thrown through the window the whole matter of Lex Talionis in terms of equal justice.
No. Well, you're talking about proportionality. They don't have any such concept. But what they believe in is revenge.
Yes.
Right? They believe in revenge, but they don't believe anybody else should.
Yes.
You know, so if you do them something, you could have taken 500 years and more into your back.
Because that's what I'm sorry. Yeah, that's what eye for eye, tooth for tooth is really about, is it not?
Well, eye for eye for tooth for tooth is really aimed, as you just said before, at proportionality.
Yes.
But how it has been interpreted is a pound of flesh, is a merchant of Venice thing. It is doing to you what you do to me. But originally, lex talionis was to reduce from 4 to 1 to 1 to 1. Because the principle of Lamech was that if you steal my goat, I must steal 4 of yours.
Right.
And Moses came up with this 1 for 1 business, this proportionality.
Yes. How will this end, Dr. Roper? It has been going on for years now.
What is important is that we need to see this as part of a greater hegemonic or geopolitical struggle. Right? Yesterday, NATO sent out a set of bombers to fly over 20 countries in Europe in order to, you could argue, intimidate Russia. Russia is the largest country on earth, with 17 million square kilometers. Right? But Russia and the West are in a conflict of sort, or a certain intention. And what they were doing yesterday was flexing their muscles. Now, we need to understand how Euro-America empire is sustained. It is sustained on what it does with oil, right? First of all, the currency in which oil is traded, and secondly, who controls the oil. And Israel is pivotal to their control of the oil enterprise in what is called the Middle East. Even the name Middle East is a hegemonic title. Middle of what and east of where? Right? It's a way of indicating what it is in relation to their particular agenda. So the Israel that you're talking about is really like Dallas in the U.S. It's a part of how the empire devolves itself and maintains its control of the role. What had happened is that thanks to the Dallas School, it has been co-opted, started with Schofield and Riley and those people and the dispensational hermeneutics of so many churches, that they have co-opted God and religion into their own kind of business, So
it's back to the whole matter of power and money with the oil and everything.
Constructing the narrative, right? They say,
and then morphed into this one about religion, the Christianity.
Well, religion has been co-opted, though.
Yes.
So religion thinks of itself in those terms.
Right.
So people, I don't know if you've ever heard an interpreter say that him don't see America in the Bible, right? And that's because he's standing in America looking at the Bible, right? He has a blind spot because eyes look out, they don't look in. Right? The Bible is about the progress of evil and the progress of redemption from this evil. And that evil recycles itself historically. And we are in the midst of that. So if we ask me, where was Jesus? Jesus was in Palestine. Where would Jesus be? In Gaza, not in Jerusalem. That's where he was born.
I know you have a Gaza in Jamaica, eh?
Right. But they are victimizers, not victims.
Yes. Final thoughts, Dr. Roper. You have 1 minute. Yes, final thoughts.
You asked me when will it end, right? What I'm saying is history is coming to its end. If you look at the American experiment, lasted 200 and change years. It is dying now. It's like a star burning itself out. You see where they are trying to reinstall a defeated president in a democratic country by August. White people want a world where they are gods and everybody else is something else. That experiment is about to fail because women and minorities are aware of them. They are not buying their logic anymore that God put them there.
Okay. We have to leave
They are imploding. And Israel's Jean the other day was to preserve Netanyahu's longevity politically. It is
And
about to
legacy.
come to an end.
And legacy. You have to leave it there, Dr. Roper. What I regard as an
Thanks for
interesting,
the
informative, insightful discussion. Have a productive day.
And you.
Great. Thank you, listeners, for being with us. Join us again tomorrow as we continue to set the stage for a discussion of topical and controversial issues. For information on how to get copies of this program, call our production department at 876-968-959627. This has been The Morning Watch. Thanks to our producer, Miss Kathy Gale, and our guests. I'm Dylan Toussaint, handing you back to Love in the Morning with Shavani Blair.
But I was trying to find your song, but I couldn't find any this morning.
I was listening up. I don't know where you got that taxi tune yesterday. I don't know where you get up that taxi tune there. But tomorrow we'll see. We'll see what happens tomorrow.
I tell you, have a great day.
You too, Shavani.
It is 8:01, listeners, and it's time for the program Forward in